Welcome back on your Neighborhood Watch. Just a little bit longer intro song because Kyle loves it so much, our on-air station manager. And that was Angie Vanesina, All-American Bail Bonds. And I wanted to get into a little bit about the sheriff station outreach. Now, that is one of the major parts of our show. One of the reasons why we do this. We were just talking about Nixle reports, Facebook pages. That's really interesting that Ismail Soto's buddies, not so much on the news outlet side, but on the social media side. So
right.
It's good to know that people
What about our awesome attempts at humor on the show to keep it light, get the word out about crime prevention while keeping it fun? And
I try, but I feel
like
you don't let me get away with any jokes or any.
We're failing miserable at humor.
I don't know.
That's why we're both not comedians.
We should stick to what we do. Yeah, I do news, you do law enforcement, and that's probably how this dynamic is going to best work on the air. You were speaking of media. You were on a show for KHTS AM 1220 talking about this recent kidnapping incident that happened. It was in the news. I believe you were on TV. Major network time, all over national news. I saw you. I'm pretty sure I saw you on ABC News.
ABC
Mr.
World
Big
News
Time.
Tonight.
So tell me a little bit about the Ethan Odom case. He was a kidnapping suspect who allegedly stole a 3-year-old girl from her house in Newhall.
Correct.
And you were, I'm guessing you're pretty familiar with that case because I saw you talking about it on TV.
Right. And that,
I know that guy. That's Josh Dubin.
That's still going through the court procedures, obviously, but
Right.
the gist of the incident was basically in the evening hours, this individual allegedly approached a window of a residence, called to a 3-year-old girl. The 3-year-old girl allegedly walked over to the window. He was able to allegedly grab a hold of the girl, pull her through the window, run down the street. Family gave chase, ultimately got the little girl back, tried to detain him, did a pretty good job of detaining him, and then he ended up getting away somehow. Sheriff's deputies responded, got there, foot pursuit, set up a containment, took him into custody without incident, without using force, did an outstanding job, arrested, booked at the station, went to court, believe he pled not guilty. Now they're working it through the court.
I think one of the scariest things about that whole story for most people is that when there's something like that, a child gets kidnapped. And again, not saying Odom did; he's still a suspect at this time. But when that happens, there's often it's a result of a domestic dispute. And in this particular story, there was no connection apparently between the suspect and the family, right?
Right, and I think that was what was most troubling, not only for the community, but for us as law enforcement, too.
Try to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, a real straight kidnapping, child abduction, when you have absolutely no ties to that person is fairly uncommon, very uncommon, especially in the Santa Clarita Valley.
Right. I mean, I can't think of a case in the last several years where it hasn't been any relation to that.
Right. Usually you would think of, a custody issue or, a family disturbance type thing, but this, through our investigation, we learned that this does not appear to be the case.
And so when you were talking to Alex Urbina, our show host, what kind of things were you saying about safety and security, and how can you prevent something like that? Because it just seems like if somebody really wants to commit a crime, sometimes there's not a whole lot you can do. It
was tough talking about that because you're absolutely right. So we kind of went into, community involvement, partnering with your neighbors, keeping an eye out for each other, keeping an eye out for your kids, different things like that, really communication between neighbors, because although we love community involvement and that's what helps us do an outstanding job is community involvement, nobody knows your neighborhood better than you know your neighborhood.
Right, and that's one of the reasons I think Nextdoor is a pretty cool thing. We've talked about it a few times, but it's a social media network that actually links you with your neighbors.
Right, once you're vetted in the neighborhood. So it's Nextdoor.com. Perry Smith is on Nextdoor.com.
I am on Nextdoor.com. Have you seen an increase?
Is there some complaints on there about parties at your house, Perry?
No.
I heard
No.
That's just what I heard.
We put out notices to our neighbors when we're going to have a party.
Do you invite them?
When we have a rager.
Do you invite them so that they don't call us? So that
that is the prevailing strategy.
How's that working out for you?
Have you showed up at my house yet, dude?
I have not. I'm not invited. Know where I live. No, I'm not invited to your party. So
Kyle got invited once, but he didn't show up.
It's probably better. It's probably for the best.
Oh, I have a kids and family. Sorry, Perry. I have priorities.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. I guess everybody's got choices they got to make and live with.
Complaints can go to Perry at hometownstation.com.
I'm just saying, different places, different people, different choices. That's all. So we got 3 minutes to the break. So let's talk a little bit more. Coming up, we have Search and Rescue Team Assistant Director. Is that his title, right? Mike Liam.
Right, heavily involved with the search and rescue program throughout the entire sheriff's department throughout Los Angeles County. He is an assistant director in his professional life for the sheriff's department, but also is a reserve chief, I believe. And he'll kill me if I get that wrong, but I believe he is a reserve chief. Outstanding guy. I've met him, spoke with him many, many times.
And there's 8 teams in the search and rescue program, and so there's way more than 8 stations. So one team covers multiple stations.
Right. Some stations being so close together will utilize, one bigger team, such as the case is in Antelope Valley. Palmdale, Lancaster being close to each other. Combined teams, one Antelope Valley team will go out and handle different things like that.
And in the Santa Clarita Valley, though, we do have a dedicated team, right?
Correct. We do. We have our own search and rescue team, which is comprised. Is that the right word?
Comprised. You're good.
See?
An excellent.
Where's
usage.
Merriam-Webster on that one,
Where's
Kyle?
the claps? Where's the claps?
So we have one team at our station that's comprised of not only civilian volunteers that are highly trained, and they do it just because they love the job, love helping people. They do it for free. And then we have reserve deputy sheriffs.
They do get $1 a year, I believe.
The reserve deputy sheriffs do get $1 a year.
As somebody who makes close to that, I just want to point that out. It's not nothing.
Oh, Kyle thought that was funny.
Well, Kyle's seen my paycheck, so.
So yeah, our team does an outstanding job, and this has been a record year for call-out, search and rescue call-out. So
I saw that.
I
That
think
was
we're
in
going to
another
talk about that a little bit.
597 missions, dozens of lives saved. So everything from a 14 million year old fossil for the natural Los Angeles County Museum of Natural History, dog rescues, cliff rescues, over the side of the highway rescues. That's kind of their forte. That's what they train for. We're going to talk a little bit about that. We do have to take a quick commercial break, but we'll be right back on your Neighborhood Watch, brought to you by All American Bail Bonds on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS.
I'm taking us back in, so welcome back to the Neighborhood Watch. That's awesome. Go ahead, Perry.
All the making fun of me you do, and then you get the shot, and that's what you make of it.
I feel like you didn't give me a lot of prep time.
You don't get a lot of prep time, baby. This is live radio.
You just smacked me.
You got to get ready to go. Come on. There are no second takes. We are live.
I think you did a
on
good
your
one.
Neighborhood Watch.
See?
Oh, bomb threat.
Jessica likes it.
But she's known for her hyperbole. That's why we call her bomb threat,
Whoa.
if you'll recall. And she loves that nickname. We have Mike Liam on the line with us. Mike.
Hey, guys.
From the Sheriff's Department. Thank you for calling in.
You bet.
Some pretty cool stuff happening with the search and rescue team, but if we could take it back for our listeners and just kind of let them know what do you do for the Sheriff's Department? What's your kind of role? Are you a full deputy as well as organizing the volunteer unit? I mean, how does that work out?
Well, I wear a few hats with the Sheriff's Department. By day, I am a civilian employee with the department. Non-sworn means I don't wear a gun to work. I'm an administrator by day, and been doing that for 10 years. For 20 years, I've been a reserve sheriff's deputy, working on the search and rescue program, and that's all volunteer, which I still do on a volunteer basis.
So what do you do in the administrative capacity? Where do you work in the Sheriff's Department? Are you in headquarters? Are you downtown?
Currently, I am assigned to Reserve Forces Bureau, working out of Sheriff's Headquarters in Monterey Park. And so we oversee the reserve program of 750 reserve deputies working throughout the county as far as hiring them, training them, putting them to work, and kind of managing that whole program.
So you got involved with the Reserve Volunteer Program 20 years ago. How did that come about?
Well, for me personally, I got involved 20 years ago when a Boy Scout went missing in Big Bear by the name of Jared Negretti, and I wanted to do whatever I could do to help find him, and I realized, I didn't have the appropriate training, so kind of went on a mission to find out, how do I do this, how do I help, and led me to the fact that the Sheriff's Department oversees all search and rescue operations, and so then I went through the Reserve Academy, became a reserve deputy, became an emergency medical technician, and then got trained on the mountaineering skills, and 20 years later and 1,000 missions, and it's been very rewarding.
How did you hear about the Jared Negretti case? Was that a personal
It was
case for you?
a big media case, so it was all over the news. And so I just, I felt the pull to try and, go help find this kid. But I realized that, it's probably bad to think about going out there without knowing what you're doing and having the appropriate training.
So at that point, were you just kind of a civilian volunteer, and then you wanted to get involved and go through the training process? And
Well, yeah. As soon as I found out that the Sheriff's Department does search and rescue, then immediately I went through the application process and the training process. And luckily, I happened to live at the time very close to Santa Valley Sheriff Station, so I'm a first responder operating out of the Santa Valley Station for all search and rescue up in the Angeles National Forest.
Gotcha. And so what were you doing at that time in your day job? Because now you work, 10 years ago, you started working for the Sheriff's Department. So were you in law enforcement before then? Or
No, prior to that, I was in the grocery business, and then transitioned to a available spot as a civilian administrator in the Sheriff's Department.
So I'd imagine you oversee or kind of see a lot of what's going on in the search and rescue team. Have the trainings and the preparation, has it changed at all over the years based on, incidents like the earthquake and that kind of thing, as far as, what you learn to respond to and how you learn to respond to it?
I would say currently our search and rescue teams do more than they have in the past. We respond to any emergency that might require law enforcement and medical training. We also will deploy on presidential visits as medical support for deputies.
Oh, no kidding.
So it's a lot of fun because there's a lot of different stuff we get to do, and pretty much anything that happens down here in town also happens up in the mountains, whether it's criminal activity or people just getting into bad situations and they need rescue.
So sometimes it's just helping with the investigation in hard to reach places like cliffs and that kind of thing?
Well, for example, some of our incidents could end up being law enforcement related. For example, a car crashes over the side, and you have one person that might have been under the influence who was driving, and then consequently somebody dies. And so now it's besides being a rescue, it's also a law enforcement investigation.
And we had actually. I don't know if you were referencing that. We did have a very similar situation to that happen in our area that involved Santa Clarita Valley Search and Rescue. And I believe working with the CHP as well, when that car went over the side, there was an allegation of driving under the influence and an arrest. Obviously, that's still in the court. But somebody went, Rower Flats, they went down about 1,000 feet.
I think it was 1,500 feet, but yeah, that's the incident I was referring to.
And so, what was your role there for the search and rescue team? You guys were called out for the initial response?
Yes, the rescue team responded. I was not part of that response because I was Santa Clarita Station handle.
Oh, okay.
But the rescue team responded and worked with the LA County Fire Department.
And what are some of the? Can you talk to us about some of the more interesting things that you've seen in your? Santa Valley Sheriff Station handles some of the maybe some of the stories you tell, some of the the good luck or the success stories.
Well, throughout the county, we see people that survive against all kinds of odds. We see people that survive out in the snow for 5 days, like Jeff Thornton did up near Wrightwood a number of years ago. We see people that crash over the side going hundreds of feet, tumbling in a car and end up surviving. I responded to the JPL van that went over the side with 11 people in it, and so we see all kinds of trauma. We see, unfortunately, a lot of people that maybe don't make it. But we also have the success stories that keep us doing this day in and day out, 24/7 on a volunteer basis.
And so you mentioned a number of disciplines that you said you were trained in through the search and rescue team. So they teach you paramedic work as well as I would guess cliff climbing or. Well,
we have medical training as far as all search and rescue personnel are emergency medical technicians, which is not paramedic level; it's EMT level. Okay. And so we're able to stabilize anybody who's injured and at least get them to a helicopter or an ambulance so they can get advanced life support. And then we also have the deputy sheriff training, all the law enforcement aspects, and then we also have mountaineering training. So it's kind of a three-prong approach.
So the sheriff's volunteers, they are trained, but they're not armed volunteers or armed officers like?
Well, our rescue teams consist of both reserve sheriff's deputy personnel who are armed and civilian volunteer personnel who are not armed.
Oh, okay. So just based on what your training is or what your role is with the team, you might be...
Exactly.
Okay.
The teams primarily are reserve deputy personnel.
Gotcha. And Mike, we have to take a quick commercial break, but if I could
Sure.
have you hang on the line for one more segment and just ask you a few more questions.
You bet.
Awesome. We'll be right back after this on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS, for the Neighborhood Watch, brought to you by All Americans Bail Bonds.